Hello, 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 and welcome back to the Foreclosure Deals Coach podcast. This is the show where we discuss how to find, figure, fund, fix, and flip a foreclosure deal. I love all of my guests, but I got to tell you, this week's guest is particularly exciting. And this week's guest is exciting because Lily is coming on the show. She's our senior operations manager here on the team. She makes sure these properties get from ugly to pretty, and she does the entire thing remotely. Clients rave about her. The team raves about her. Without blowing up her ego too much more here, let's get Lily on the show. What is going on, Lily? How are you?
Hi, Donny. I'm good. How are you?
I am doing so well. I'm so excited to have you on the show today. Let's hop in. You and I have been working together for, gosh, what's it been? 6 months, 8 months? When did we first meet? Do you remember?
Yeah, I believe it was October last year, so a little bit over 8 months.
All right, 8 months.
Mhm.
And 8 months ago, I was recruiting clients actively and getting them all into deals. And, obviously we have our 5F system. I found the deals for them. I analyzed the deal. Mike at our lending team got them funded. And then I forgot there was this whole thing about fixing them up. That's kind of an important part of the process. And I remember calling you in a panic state. Like, we talked, and I was kind of freaking out. I go, oh my God, I don't know what I'm going to do. And it kind of take me from there. How do we get from, we were a disaster, 5 or 6 flips or something like that. We got through that. But do you remember how things kind of got going back then?
Yeah, of course. I believe we got started with a few projects that you had kind of had on pause for a while, and I guess nobody was really taking action. And I think it was more related to like taking action on the construction portion. And when we connected, I explained to you that I had been, previously doing this kind of thing with another investor. So I'm used to the process. I've been working on this for over 3 years now. So it was pretty exciting to be able to meet a team that, was so dynamic, and I was really excited to join the team. But it was kind of a mess when I showed up.
Not kind of. It was an extreme mess. It was an absolute disaster. So, your role here is, a lot of it is about, construction operations, talking to contractors. And I tell people about your process, but until they really meet you, I think it leaves some to be desired. I really can't tell the story of what a day in the life of Lily looks like. Maybe you can help people out a little bit. What is generally what you do for the team? Can you explain how construction operations works and how you help the team to get jobs done here?
Yeah, of course. So the way that I usually work is I get my clients and I explain to them what my process is. And I usually do both the expense tracking and the timeline management, along with managing the contractors themselves.
Right.
So if we don't have a contractor lined up to do the work, which in our case, we already have that pretty dialed in since we're working in the same area, I can give the same crews kind of consistent work. But when it's a new area, I am able to source it through, community and, platforms, sourcing new workers that are maybe getting started, or brand new contractors that maybe don't have that much work.
Right.
And I connect with them. I explain to them our needs. I tend to make scopes of work based on either video footage, or in our case, Matterport files, which is, 3-dimensional captures of, with camera software. We capture the space, and then we're able to use it as a 3D model to understand what's going on with the property and what needs to be modified and what can be improved on site. So from there, we go to the construction portion, which is basically just explaining how much we have to spend on each line item, and then just kind of keeping that in check, making sure that things are done on time, on budget. And that's basically what I do. I have to constantly be on the phone with contractors. That's what my job is. That's what my day-to-day looks like. I'm always on the phone.
Sounds miserable. And only because, I'm not a big fan of talking to contractors. I mean, maybe, obviously, you develop, you're like a snake charmer for contractors in a way. This is call you the contractor whisperer, because you're really good at talking to people in a very complicated space. And just to get people some understanding, you're based in Mexico, right? You're not even local to the States here, right? So you're negotiating all these deals, getting contractors in place from your Mexico location. That's just incredible. How has the world of construction changed to where virtual is so feasible? Working at this model virtually is feasible. It's just that you're mega talented, or just kind of the future of how construction management is operated now?
I think that the internet and the fact that we have, communication, global communication worldwide, is just making it so much easier for somebody to be able to do this, remotely, because that's what managing contractors is. And if you ask any civil engineer, any architect, any contractor, that's what you do. You have to be on the phone with people. And thanks to technology, I don't even have to be on site, because the technology has allowed me to be able to view a space without physically being there and being able to evaluate. And of course, I'll always ask my contractors to go on site and give me some feedback, but I'm probably 95% right most of the time on what needs to be done and what it's going to cost. So
that's your experience, right? I mean, you're doing this a long time. You've done a lot of projects remotely. So I think you developed that talent, but also being able to talk the language of contractors is such an important thing, because for me, it does feel like gobbledygook. A lot of what they say just doesn't make sense. Well, the toilet doesn't, you need to get this one part. Bro, does the toilet flush or no? Can you just let me know if it works? How do you avoid contractor speak and get them to get to the point and get the work done so effectively? What's your secret sauce there?
Well, part of it is that I studied architecture. So when they start talking about details and nitty gritty stuff, I do understand what they're talking about. But usually what I go to is, okay, what's going to be the cheapest option? And what is your suggestion? What should we do? You gotta teach them to be proactive about how to work on a problem. They're like, hey, Lily, oh my God, we had a leak and everything happened. And they're freaking out, and I'm like, okay, what do we have to do?
Right.
I'm not there,
I can't solve this problem for you.
Tell me what we need to do. And then they're like, well, we can do this or we can do that. And I'm like, okay, what's the difference? Which one is more expensive and which one is, the best option? And what's the price difference? Because sometimes we go for the cheapest thing and then it turns out to be more expensive on the long run. So we really need to be able to weigh those two things to see if maybe in the long run it's going to be better to spend a little bit of money. But then other times it's why do we have to spend all this money when this has an easy, kind of fix? So it's just weighing those options.
I love that. I think the background in architecture was a critical part of that. The fact that you have that, that architectural brain, because it is a different way to look at spaces and et cetera. And I think being able to understand what's behind the walls is a critical part that I don't really have that full understanding even to this day. I've been doing this a long time, but the reason you're a rock star on this team is because that really is your focus, and your forte is predicting what needs to get done. Let's talk a little bit about sourcing contractors. I know, again, you're based in Mexico, so you have access to Facebook Espanol. Tell me about how Facebook Espanol is drastically different than the Facebook I'm used to being on, et cetera, and how it gives you access to these guys to do the work for you.
It's not just Facebook, Donny, but something really cool about being Hispanic. And, like you mentioned, I'm based in Mexico. So it's how do you find people that give you stuff for cheap? Well, in reality, it's hard for people to find stuff for cheap, in even in their own hometown, right?
Right.
What happens is that the Hispanic community tends to be very tight knit. So when you find a community, that's all you have to do is find a social media platform where a certain community of people is going to gather. And in my case, I prefer the Hispanic community because I'm Hispanic. Right. So I reach out to people through these communities that form. And I communicate with them in Spanish most of the time. This makes them feel more comfortable with me. And it's kind of the best of both worlds, because I can communicate very well with people that, are based in the States, and they feel comfortable because my accent is, weirdly, my accent makes people feel better about working with me. And then I talk to people in Spanish, and obviously my Spanish is fluent, so I can make them feel like they're not working for some random, entitled person. They're working with me, and I'm kind of a little bit more on their level. They feel like they could be a little bit more understood. So I think that's the secret.
I think that's very valid. I think the community part of it is really where you nailed it. People want to work with people like themselves, and it's not about race. It's about understanding of where you've been through. You can relate to them on a level that normal people can't relate to them on, And I feel that way about our clientele. I've been in the spot where they've never done a deal before. They don't know where to get a Lily, right? To set these, to get the construction done. They don't know how to get the funding done. They don't know these pieces. I can relate to that feeling. And as a result, I communicate with them more effectively than people have not been through what we've been through, right? So I think that's a very valid point. The funding is a big thing, though. You have to manage the cost of the construction, paying the laborers, buying the parts. That's a high trust position. I mean, you're on certain projects, we're managing $40,000-$50,000. How do you keep the balance on that? How do you make the client feel comfortable that the money's being spent in the right place to get the project done?
Well, obviously, it's a huge trust factor, and like you said, it's a position that requires a lot of trust by part of the investors, because they are entrusting their money to me to be spent in the most efficient way possible to make it, yield the highest results. But I do have systems in place in order to make them feel comfortable with spending money with me. I don't actually have access to those $50,000-$60,000, whatever it is that we have. I enable them to be able to pay for things. For example, with Home Depot, they do phone sales. Like, I don't have to be involved at all with them paying for the contractor's materials, and then the contractor doesn't have access to that money. We're not entrusting the money to the contractor, like, hey, here's $1,000, go buy material, and then maybe they never come back. Instead of that, they go buy the materials, do a phone sale, my client pays for it, and then the material cost is just what the material cost is. There's no markup.
Yes.
And then there's the factor of the workers getting paid. Mm-hmm. I only do one initial payment for a percentage of the project.
Okay.
Once the work is over the amount that they actually have done, and we I'll do all these calculations.
Sure.
Then we kind of by the time that the next payment is up, it's kind of we owe them money, but they already showed us that they're doing the work.
Right.
So the really scary part for most of users, I feel like most clients, is just that initial payment. That's the only risk that they're taking. It's usually $2,000 or $3,000 that you have to pay the contractor to get started. He has to have money to start work.
Absolutely.
But afterwards, a couple of weeks later, you see all of the things that have been done.
Yep.
And then you're like, oh, okay, it's worth it to pay them another couple $1,000s. And it feels less of a strain, because now we're playing this game of we need to check that your work is okay and that the quality is there in order for us to issue the next payment. And then we flip it. They they no longer have the upside of we already got paid and maybe we decide not to do the work. The only instance where that could happen is in the initial payment. And since I already have a relationship with these people,
you're not worried about that.
Obviously, there's a trust factor there with me and my workers, where they know that it's more worthwhile to continue to get work with me than to just screw us over one time over a couple $1,000s. It's just not worth it.
I love that. And one of the things I love about, dealing with a lot of your crews, Hispanic crews in particular, is the amount of pride that goes into the work. When we're dealing with non-Hispanic crews, there's kind of an attitude that's just kind of want to get paid, leave me alone, right? But every time I go down to one of your job sites, it's they want to show me things. They're excited about the work that they're doing, and the level of quality, Lily, it's astounding. How do you manage quality control from thousands of miles away? How do you keep the quality so high?
Well, it's a combination of things. I mean, clearly has to be a lot of communication between me and the contractors. I talk to my contractors 2-3 times a day. Yeah. Sometimes we do video calls where they're just kind of showing me around and being like, hey, look, this cable is here. They'll explain things to me, and I'll be able to get pictures taken on a regular basis, be sending that over to our clients so that they know that work is happening, and they're, to keep them at ease. Over communicating is a key factor for both my management of the contractors and then my management of the client being in a comfortable position. And then we currently with you, we have a foreman that is actually a third party that can go on site, take pictures, and let me know if there's anything that's, maybe not completed as we expected, or maybe the quality is just not there. But as you mentioned, our crews tend to be very, very proud of their work, and they feel offended whenever you say something's not up to the quality that you expected. Like they will do their best to give you the highest quality possible because they take a lot of pride in their work. So
And
that's
it shows.
super important.
It really shows. Like I saw one of our projects yesterday, the project on Wyoming that Samantha did, and it's just the level of the attention to detail was overwhelming for me. I almost emotional in a way because it's such a source of pride for me too. Where it's like, we're taking somebody who's never seen a property. She's halfway across the country, where she's entrusting us with her, the coaching fee for one thing, but then the money to buy the house, then more money to you to fix the house, and the end product comes out this home that somebody's going to love and really, love and cherish for years because you and your crews did such an incredible job getting that house from ugly. Because I mean, we all saw the before; it was terrible. The after is just, I would live there. I'm not a big fan of Pueblo. I would constantly live in that property and feel good about it because it's just so nice. Just such a nicely done job. So kudos to you on that. Obviously, you're with the team, and we value you more than anything. But it's you also have other people you do operations for, right? So how does somebody get in touch with you if they want to do a construction project remotely and they want you to manage that on their behalf? You want to share your contact info for that, or what's the best way to get in touch with you to get other deals as well?
I think that the easiest thing to get in touch with me is just looking me up on socials. I'm, under Lily Nieves, the Lily Snow. That comes from like a nickname that I've gotten ever since I was probably in high school. Everybody started calling me Lily Snow. So my last name is, means snow. So that's the reason for that. I'm also on Facebook. And my email is info.snowprojects@gmail.com. I do work with other people. Right now we're doing we're going to start out in June, a project in Louisiana for a beauty salon. And it's actually pretty large scale. So I'm excited to do some commercial work as well.
That's so cool.
But my specialty is definitely residential.
Yeah. And you're super good at it. And I just think it's an awesome process. Let's hop into Flipper Force here for a little bit. The software we're using right now is the project management tool of Flipper Force. What do you want the client to gain from using Flipper Force? I know there's always a learning curve anytime you get a new software, but why do you think Flipper Force is beneficial for clients to jump into and use as they're going through their project with you?
I think that Flipper Force has a really cool setup because it not only has like it doesn't have only one or two things. Like it actually has a very well-rounded system that has automations involved. So for example, on my end, me doing project management, obviously one of the most important factors is estimates. And Flipper Force definitely enables us to be able to create estimates in a quick pace. And there's no like, oh my God, I forgot, factor to like, because for example, for me, something that tends to happen to me is I'll forget either like I'll forget about HVAC, I will just assume that the property has functioning heating system, and then like I'll completely forget about it. That can't really happen here because if I'm reading through the list and it's just asking me like, are you going to need roofing? Are you going to need this, this, and this? Right. And like a lot of the times I'll be like, oh, I never asked if we had an HVAC. I never asked if they checked on the roof to see if it was in good condition. So these are things that really enable us to be able to check on things before they become a problem. Yes. And like also the fact that you can add, the 10% contingency, you can add that from the very beginning and see how your budget is increasing along with that 10%. So that it's not like, okay, I finished my budget and it looks so pretty. It says exactly $30,000. And then you hit the 10% and then you hit the management fees. And then all of a sudden that turns into 35 or 36,000, and you wanted it to really stay up to 30. So it really helps you regulate it.
I love that. And I think just managing the project and having the client portal where they can hop in, they can see where you're at, how much you spent, get a general feel for where the project's at and what else needs to get done while getting the video updates, the picture updates in Slack, and all the ways that we communicate with the client to let them know what's happening. But obviously you know this, but communication, why is communication so important for clients as they're going through the project? And how do you make them feel better about, managing a project, which you're doing on their behalf, but how do you keep them informed about what's happening in their project?
Well, I mean, it's understandable if you kind of think about the fact that they're spending money on this, and that's not a small amount. So obviously when you spend a large amount of money on something, you want to see your money's worth. So it's super important for us as, a construction team to always like, reach out to the client and be like, hey, this is what's happening. And even if it's a picture of a bunch of cables, like, hey, we're working on electrical. Like, I know it's not easy to spot. Usually MEP is just not something that you're super a fan of. But like, I've sent pictures of pipes to our clients where like you see the old rusted ones, and then like a day later I'll be like, hey, our workers are done with the plumbing. Here's a picture of the new plumbing, and like it's an entirely new system. So the communication with Flipper Force is really helpful because we also can set up a Gantt chart. I don't know if you know that. And the Gantt chart on Flipper Force, I just wish it had like it could get connected to like the expenses, but it like on its own, it's actually really useful because if you subscribe to that Gantt chart, you will get a notification in your email every single day saying, hey, this is what, like for this project, this is what we're going to be doing today. So the client can always be updated on, hey, like automatically, hey, today we're working on plumbing, we're working on drywall, and we're working on, I don't know, the roof. And like they will have that constant update. And on top of that, obviously, we're sending pictures, we're sending updates, we're saying, hey, we really need to get the gas connected because we're trying to see if the water heater is working, things like that.
Yeah. And I think having something you can follow, a process, you're very process oriented.
Yeah.
You've got a process you want to follow. Being able to see what's happening in real time with that Gantt chart keeps things on track. And this allows people to do this flip. You're watching the P's and Q's, as it were, so they can live their lives and still be part of the flipping process, which I think is incredible. I wasn't going to do this, but I really want to show the Wyoming property, and I'd like to do some of the before and afters to celebrate what you did a little bit, but also because people need to understand how involved this process is in general, but much less from a remote standpoint where you're at. So let's start with the before. This is Wyoming when you got the property. I don't need to tell you it was a mess, but how did you feel? Yeah. This is kind of a day at the office for you, but what stood out to you about the before on this property when you first got it? What were your concerns, if any, when you first got the property?
I think that when we first got the property, I was really concerned because my construction crew went over there to just like kind of see what work needed to be done.
Okay.
And I had already put together a scope of work, and then they started telling me like, "Hey, the HVAC in this house has been completely dismantled," and like, they were telling me like the electrical system is completely destroyed. Like we're gonna have to rewire the house, and I was like, "What are you talking about? Like I didn't consider this into our budget." And they were like, okay, like chill, we'll figure it out. And like my team has always really supported me in that sense. Yes. So I feel like these little things that make the house function really, really helped. But then there's also the fact that, this house looks so dated. And like right now in these pictures, we're actually like already into the construction process whenever we were working on this.
Okay.
You can see that the flooring has already been removed. Like it's been cleaned out. Like a lot of the things there are just like, part of the construction crew's process already. But it still looked like crap, at the beginning of the project. You can see all the stuff in there.
Let's go to the after real quick, because obviously we've seen how, halfway through construction or midway through construction, basically, to what it looks like now. I'm going to share my screen again here. And then I think we just have still photos. I don't know if we got the matter report here, but that's okay. Let me drop the screen share. Stop screen percent. So this is it listed on Zillow. And it just came out. I mean, I was literally at the property yesterday, and it just came out beautifully. The pictures don't truly do it justice, I don't think. Just the general feel of being done, and at such an inexpensive price. I mean, I think what's exciting about this is we're taking homes that had a low probability of getting to this nice, right? And you've taken the interior design elements, added some color, flair, and et cetera. And that's all part of the process with you, right? Deciding on the interior design and the color palettes and things like that.
Yes, I tend to be very involved in things like, what colors are we using, what kind of flooring, what kind of carpeting, even that light fixture, I picked it out myself.
I love it.
And like, it's really important to take into account these little things that maybe don't seem as important when you're doing like a large scale project. You just kind of want to see the big things like the flooring and the walls, but also like the little details, like picking out the right faucet, making sure that all the hinges are the same color. Like these are things that you won't notice if it's well done.
Yes.
Like the tile here, this bathroom was like kind of a little passion project because like I picked out the vanity and I picked out like the little faucets, and then we picked out like a very nice tile and we ordered it online. So it, like we had to wait for it to arrive. And then these mirrors, can you believe these mirrors are $69?
That's
Like
so cheap. That's amazing. They
they
look amazing.
they have Bluetooth. They have Bluetooth, both of them.
That's so unnecessary for a mirror, but it's
I
cool.
know.
Like it's really cool.
Yeah, like you want to listen to music while you're taking a shower, like your mirror can play it for you.
Your mirror can play some songs for you. Who would have thought, right? Who would have thought mirrors were going to start playing music? Incredible, Lily. Just absolutely incredible, the transformation. And I think, we just hit the mark with that property. Not going to last long on the market. We got a lot of showings on the property already. It's going to go. We have to talk to numbers a little bit because, we picked up that house for 130 grand. You had a nearly $40,000 budget, but correct me if I'm wrong, you managed to come in a good 4,000 or 5,000 under budget, right?
Yes. So our original budget was actually 36,000, and
Okay.
whenever we actually went to the property that I was telling you, like my contractors were looking at it and like telling me, hey, we're gonna spend more because like there's these things that you didn't tell us about that we didn't know, like the electrical, we did not know that it was so wrecked. And then like the downstairs, the basement of the house was just in terrible shape. There were several things, like the plumbing also had a lot of work to do. So like I went to Samantha, our client, for this one, and I told her like, hey, it's probably not going to be 36. I know that's what we got the loan at, but it's probably going to be 40 because of all these factors, right? And I updated the expenses, or the expense projection, but then my team came in and like they spent the bare minimum on materials. They were not going to get paid like extra for things that were already there. They just got like a little bit of an incentive for certain things. Like for example, the HVAC was not part of their original pay.
Okay.
But we actually managed to come in at 37,000 total at the end of the project. So in reality, we only went $1,000 over the original budget before we actually saw the site, but definitely, lower than we had expected based on all of the modifications that had to come in. So
and we had 10% the fudge factor. So you came in below the gotcha factor, right?
Yeah, we came in below because I believe we requested 40. We requested 40.
And especially when you talk about major plumbing, people get afraid of that, right? Oh my God, the plumbing could be bad, the HVAC could be bad. Even with those things, we managed to stay pretty close and definitely within our fudge factor. So it just goes to show that there are other things we can cut or shave if we get outside of that scope. But people get so nervous about these. They're big things when you add them all up. So I don't want to downplay the importance of them, but ultimately it's in your hands to make sure you stay within that budget. You've done a bang up job of that. Lily, we're going to wrap up here. We're getting towards the end. A lot of people are watching this right now. They are nervous about getting into coaching because they're used to just dealing with me. I've got this kind of voice and particular charm to myself, right? That some people can handle and others cannot, right? But what would you tell somebody who is on the fence about getting into our team and getting you on the team to do a foreclosure flip? What would you tell somebody on the fence about getting into the deal and starting with us?
I would tell them that I personally, if I were in their position, I wouldn't want to try to do it alone. One of the big things about real estate investing is it's a very lonely business. If you don't share the load, it's going to become very overwhelming very, very quickly. Like if you want to manage your own project and it's the first time you've done it, like it was overwhelming for me when I first started. But obviously I have all this like prior experience and I already have systems in place, as we do all of like our respective positions. Mike and his financials, and you and your like deal searching mode, Scott, Steve, they all have their specialty, and like going with someone who's going to kind of handhold you, like if I'm honest, it's a little bit of hand holding, but like it's also like you're not alone, like you're not the only person that cares. And like, yes, it's your money, but it's also you that's going to be making like the most profit if this goes well. And like, I know that a lot of people say, well, that's a big if. Well, not really. Like you're really mitigating a lot of the if factor if you go with an experienced team. If you try to go at it by yourself, I guarantee you're going to lose money.
That's right. 85% of people who do their first flip lose money. And by bringing in an experienced team like we have, we mitigate. We can't guarantee anything. I want to be very clear. This is an investment vehicle. All investing involves some degree of risk. But by bringing in a rock star in the construction space like you, because I'll be frank, I say the fixed part is probably the riskiest part. This is the most likelihood of waggle factor, right? And we've got that budget. You got to manage all the contractors. We have theft problems on some of the properties. Like everything that could possibly go wrong tends to happen in the construction space, and it's your job to mitigate it. But the fact that you have a team with you to mitigate it with you, I just think makes it night and day different and much more likely to be profitable. So I think that's awesome. Any parting thoughts before we let you go today, Lily? Anything you want to tell the people who are watching today?
Well, I'm just saying, I just got to say, just do it. Like, one of the things that happens to a lot of people that want to get into real estate investing is they think about it for 3 or 4 years before they actually get into it. Absolutely. Like, you don't want to do that. Like, take advantage. Like, you're a rookie. Okay. Like, you don't know how to do it. Start. That's the only way to learn. Starting out is like literally doing is the only way of learning. That's just a reality. And like, I've learned as I go. Like, I have started things where I knew nothing of it, and I like, the only thing is like, I got to figure it out. And like the figure it outable gene.
There you go. And a lot of people lack that. You can't downplay it. A lot of people don't know how to figure stuff out, and I think that describes most people. So if you feel like you're in that spot, getting help with an experienced team that's already figured it out is going to save you some time and effort in getting to your first deal.
Definitely.
Lily, thank you so much for being on the show today. Really appreciate having you. It's been a resource for the team. Thank you for all that you do. We're excited to keep doing deals with you.
Yeah, no, me too. Let's get it.
Thanks, Lily. I appreciate it. Well, guys, you heard it right here. The idea is that you're not just getting me and motivational and pushing to do a deal, but you're getting an entire team of professionals that can help you through doing your first deal, including Lily, who's going to walk the construction process through and get you to make real money doing fix and flip deals right here in the local market. So if you're ready to get started, slide up in my DMs. Let's chat about how we can work together to get your first deal done. And guys, I'm so excited. Summertime's upon us. The weather is gorgeous. It's go time. I hope that you'll join us and get started in this process. Look forward to talking to all of you soon. With that, this is Donny Coram, your foreclosure deals coach. Thanking you so much for tuning into this podcast each and every single week and reminding you now and always, don't buy a house, buy a deal.